Question 1. In years past, professional baseball players lifted weights less but were also injured less often during games. Obviously, the more an athlete lifts weights, the higher the likelihood of injury. The conclusion above presupposes which of the following? A. The increase in baseball injuries is due to a factor other than weightlifting. B. The activities of baseball players represent those of athletes as a group. C. Most baseball injuries today result from too much weight lifting. D. There is no proven correlation between how much athletes lift weights and how likely they are to be affected by injury. E. Weightlifting has always been common practice for professional athletes. The correct answer is B. Let's see how it's done. First, read the question. The conclusion above presupposes which of the following? This is what's called an assumption question. What specific piece of information is presupposed or assumed in the preceding argument? Break it down to understand what the writer is really saying. Can you identify the premises and the conclusion? Premise number 1. In years past, professional baseball players lifted weights less. Premise number 2. But they were also injured less often during games. Conclusion. Obviously, the more an athlete lifts weights, the higher the likelihood of injury. Restate or paraphrase the argument, if necessary. Stick as close to the actual text as possible. Become comfortable at working backwards on these questions. Working backwards, inserting each answer choice into the text and seeing if the passage still makes sense is an excellent technique to fall back on if you get stuck on a critical reasoning question. However, it can be time-consuming. You may need to reread a passage 5 times, inserting a different answer choice each time, before you find the choice that seems right to you. Never choose an answer simply because it is true. The answer choice must be a logical extension of the argument made in the passage. Ignore decoys. GMAT passages contain extraneous sentences and information. Learn to separate these decoys from the rest of the passage so they won't distract you from the content that is important. Avoid answer choices that are emotionally charged or over the top. The correct GMAT answer choices are always emotionally neutral in tone and moderate in reasoning. Avoid answer choices that make absolute statements. Absolute statements are those that use words, such as always and must. The test writers are very biased against these types of statements. Hence, when you encounter an answer choice that makes an absolute statement, you will know that it can be safely eliminated. There are 8 definitive types of critical reasoning questions. Each question type has its own traps and a specific strategy is required to ace each one of them. 1. Draw a conclusion. 2. Assumption. 3. Strengthen. 4. Weaken. 5. Inference. 6. Explain the apparent contradiction. 7. Complete the passage. 8. Accept questions. Assumption questions. An assumption question asks you to identify an unstated premise of the passage from among the answer choices. Causal assumptions take an effect and suggest a cause for it. Every time I wear my green suit, people like me. Therefore, it is my green suit that makes people like me. The analogy assumptions compares one situation to another. Use of this product causes cancer in laboratory animals. Therefore, you should stop using this product. Statistical assumptions uses stats to prove its point. 4 out of 5 doctors agree the pain reliever Synodal is the most effective analgesic on the market today. You should try Synodal. How to recognize an assumption question. Assumption questions generally contain one of the following wordings. 1. Which of the following is an assumption? 2. The argument above assumes that. 3. The claim above rests on the questionable presupposition that. For example, many people believe that gold and platinum are the most valuable commodities. To the true entrepreneur, however, gold and platinum are less valuable than opportunities that can enable him to further enrich himself. Therefore, in the world of high finance, information is the most valuable commodity. The author of the above passage makes which of the following assumptions? 1. Gold and platinum are not the most valuable commodities. 2. Entrepreneurs are not like most people. 3. The value of information is insolubly high. 4. Information about business opportunities is accurate and will lead to increased wealth. 5. Only entrepreneurs feel that information is the most valuable commodity. Strengthen the argument questions. 1. The best answer will strengthen the argument with new information. 2. The new information will support the conclusion. How to recognize a strengthen the argument question. Questions generally contain one of the following wordings. 1. Which of the following, if true, most strengthens the argument? 2. Which of the following, if true, most strongly supports the author's hypothesis? For example, it has been recently proposed that we adopt an all-volunteer. This policy was tried on a limited basis several years ago, and was a miserable failure. The level of education of the volunteers was unacceptable low, while levels of drug use and crime soared among Army personnel. Can we trust our national defense to a volunteer army? The answer is clearly no. Which of the following, if true, most strengthens the author's claim that an all-volunteer army should not be implemented? 1. The general level of education has risen since the first time an all-volunteer army was tried. 2. The proposal was made by an organization called Citizens for Peace. 3. The first attempt to create a volunteer army was carried out according to the same plan now under proposal and under the same condition as those that exist today. 4. A volunteer army would be less expensive than an army that relies on the draft. 5. The size of the army needed today is smaller than that needed when a volunteer army was first tried. Weaken the argument questions. The statement should weaken the conclusion of the passage. How to recognize a weaken the argument question. Which of the following, if true, most seriously weakens the conclusion drawn in the passage? Which of the following indicates a flaw in the reasoning above? Which of the following, if true, would cast the most serious doubt on the argument above? For example, the recent turnaround of the Lex Corporation is a splendid example of how an astute chief executive officer can rechannel a company's assets toward profitability. With the new CEO at the helm, Lex has gone, in only 3 business quarters, from $10 million operating loss to a $22 million operating gain. A major flaw in the reasoning of the above passage is that the passage assumes that the new CEO was the only factor that affected the corporation's recent success. The recent success of the corporation may be only temporary. The CEO may be drawing a salary and bonus that will set a damaging precedent for this and other corporations. The author does not define profitability. Rechannelizing assets is only a short-term solution